Johnny Carson had interviewed over 22,000 guests during his legendary Tonight Show career, but nothing in his 24 years of broadcasting could have prepared him for what was about to unfold on this October evening in 1986. The show was running smoothly. Bette Davis, Hollywood's most formidable legend, sat across from him discussing her latest television project. The audience was engaged, the conversation flowing with that signature Carson charm. But hidden in the wings of NBC's Burbank studio was an 8-year-old girl clutching a secret so devastating, so profoundly moving that it would stop America's most unflappable host mid-sentence and transform routine late-night entertainment into one of the most powerful moments ever captured on television. What no one in that studio knew, not even Johnny himself, was that little Emma had been carrying this secret for 14 months. A secret about Bette Davis. A secret about survival. A secret that would reveal how an old black and white movie from 1942 had literally kept a dying child's heart beating through the darkest hours of chemotherapy. The cameras were rolling. Bette Davis, at 78 years old, was in the middle of describing her latest role when Johnny would receive an urgent message from his producer that would change everything. In just moments, he would do something he'd never done before. Stop the show completely, break every protocol, and invite a terminally ill child onto the set without rehearsal, without preparation, without knowing what she was about to reveal. This wasn't just television. This was about to become proof that some secrets are too beautiful, too powerful, and too important to stay hidden. What started as a typical celebrity interview was about to become a testament to hope, courage, and the mysterious ways that Hollywood's golden age could reach across decades to save a life that modern medicine had almost given up on. But first, Johnny had no idea what was waiting for him backstage. The Ed Sullivan Theater's familiar warm lighting bathed Studio One in that comfortable glow that had welcomed millions of Americans into their living rooms every weekend night for nearly a quarter century. The iconic Tonight Show set with its vibrant curtain and Ed McMahon positioned at his desk radiated the kind of comfort that felt like home to viewers across the nation. The date was October 16, 1986, and the energy in the room was celebratory. Bette Davis commanded the guest chair with the same fierce presence that had defined 6 decades of cinematic excellence. At 78, her distinctive voice still carried that razor-sharp wit. Her eyes still flashed with the intelligence that had made her Hollywood royalty. She was there to promote a television movie. But as always with Bette, the conversation went deeper. "Miss Davis," Johnny said with genuine admiration, "you've played some of the strongest women in film history. Margot Channing, Charlotte Vale, Baby Jane. These characters have become cultural icons. What do you think it is about these roles that continues to resonate with audiences even today?" Bette leaned forward slightly, her voice taking on that contemplative tone that revealed the artist behind the legend. "Johnny, I never played victims. I refused to. Every woman I portrayed was a survivor. Someone who faced impossible circumstances and found a way through. There's a difference between suffering and surviving, and I think audiences recognize that difference instinctively. Do you ever hear from people about how these characters have affected them personally?" Johnny asked constantly, Bette replied, her expression softening. "I receive letters every week from women who tell me that watching Margot stand up for herself or seeing Charlotte transform from a frightened woman into someone brave gave them permission to find their own strength. That's the power of cinema, Johnny. It's not just entertainment. It can be medicine for the soul." As Bette spoke these words, something extraordinary was happening behind the scenes. Fred de Cordova, Johnny's longtime producer, was having an urgent whisper conversation with the production assistant. In his hand was a note that would derail the entire show. A note about a little girl who had traveled 400 miles with a secret that Bette Davis needed to hear. But what that secret contained would shake everyone in that studio to their core. Keep watching because what happens next will change everything you think you know about the power of movies. Johnny's expression shifted almost imperceptibly as he noticed Fred de Cordova moving toward the edge of a stage making urgent hand gestures. Something was different. In 24 years of hosting, Johnny had developed an almost supernatural ability to read the room, to sense when something significant was brewing. His famous composure never wavered, but those who knew him well could see it. His posture changed, his eyes flickered toward the wings, and for just a split second, he broke his rhythm. "Miss Davis," Johnny said, his voice taking on a different quality, something more tender, more serious. I need to tell you something. We have a very special guest here tonight who's been hoping to meet you. Betty's eyebrows raised with interest. In all her years in Hollywood, she'd learned to expect the unexpected, but something in Johnny's tone suggested this wasn't a typical surprise. Her name is Emma, Johnny continued carefully. She's 8 years old, and she's been fighting leukemia for the past 14 months. She's traveled here from Northern California with her grandmother because she has something incredibly important. She needs to tell you something about how your work saved her life. The change in Bette Davis was instantaneous and remarkable. This woman, famous for her steel-eyed toughness, for never showing weakness on camera, sat up straighter in her chair. Her eyes, those legendary eyes that had commanded the screen for 6 decades, suddenly glistened with moisture. Is she here? Bette asked, her voice cracking slightly. Can I meet her? Johnny smiled. And anyone who'd watched him for years recognized that particular smile. It was the smile he wore when something genuinely beautiful was about to happen. She's backstage right now with her grandmother, Dorothy. Emma has been carrying a secret, Miss Davis. A secret about you, about your movies, about survival, and she's been waiting for this moment for a very long time. The studio audience, accustomed to laughter and applause, fell into a profound, anticipatory silence. Something in the air had shifted. They could feel it. This wasn't going to be funny. This wasn't going to be light. This was going to be real in a way that late-night television rarely allowed. Bette stood up without hesitation. Bring her out here, Johnny. Please, I'd be honored to meet her. Emma, Johnny called toward the wings, his voice gentle and welcoming. Would you like to come say hello to Miss Davis? What happened next would transform Studio One from an entertainment venue into sacred ground. But the secret Emma was about to reveal was something no one, not even her grandmother, fully understood. Emma appeared from behind the curtain, and the collective gasp from the audience was audible. She was tiny, almost fragile, wearing a pink bandana that covered her head where chemotherapy had stolen her hair. Her dress, clearly chosen for this special occasion, hung loosely on her thin frame. But what struck everyone immediately? What caused tears to form in eyes throughout that studio wasn't her physical condition. It was her smile. That radiant, enormous smile that lit up her entire face when she saw Bette Davis sitting there waiting for her. She walked across that stage with careful, measured steps, clutching something against her chest that no one could quite see. Her grandmother, Dorothy, followed a few steps behind, her hand covering her mouth, tears already streaming down her face. When Emma reached the guest area, Bette immediately sat back down and patted the seat right next to her, making space, making it safe. Hello, sweetheart, Bette said, her famous voice now soft and maternal. I'm Bette. Come sit with me. Emma sat down carefully, her eyes wide with wonder at being this close to the woman she'd seen on screen 47 times. The studio was completely silent. The cameras continued rolling, but everyone had stopped thinking about television. This had become something else entirely. Miss Davis, Emma said, her young voice surprisingly clear and strong. I need to tell you something very important. I'm listening, darling, Bette replied, giving Emma her complete, undivided attention. What do you want to tell me? Emma took a deep breath, looked back at her grandmother for encouragement, then turned to face Bette with an expression of absolute seriousness that seemed far too old for an 8-year-old child. You saved my life, Emma said simply. And those 4 words hit everyone in that theater like a physical force. And I need to tell you the secret about how you did it. Betty's face crumbled with emotion. I saved your life. Oh, sweetheart, how did I do that? And then Emma began to speak. And as she did, she revealed something that no one had expected. Something that would explain everything about why this moment mattered so much. When I got really sick with leukemia, the doctors told my grandma that I might die. Emma said, her voice steady despite the devastating words. They said the cancer was very bad and the medicine they had to give me was so strong that lots of kids couldn't make it through. I had to stay in the hospital for weeks and weeks, and the medicine made me so sick I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep and I hurt everywhere. The audience was crying openly now. Bette held a small hand in both of hers. Tears running down her famous face. I wanted to give up, Miss Davis. Emma continued. I told my grandma I was too tired to keep fighting. And that's when she showed me something. That's when she told me the secret. Johnny leaned forward, completely absorbed. Ed McMahon had tears running down his face. Every person in that studio was holding their breath. What secret, Emma? Bette whispered. What did your grandmother show you? Emma finally revealed what she'd been clutching to her chest. A worn VHS tape of Now Voyager. But what she said next about that movie, about what she discovered inside it, would explain everything. Don't go anywhere. Subscribe and keep watching, because what Emma reveals next will break your heart and restore your faith in the power of stories. Emma held up that Warren VHS tape. Its cover faded from countless viewings and began to share the secret that had kept her alive through 14 months of hell. My grandma showed me this movie, Emma said, her voice gaining strength. And she told me to watch very carefully because there was a secret hidden in it. A secret that would help me survive. Bette leaned in closer, completely captivated. What secret, sweetheart? In the movie, Emma explained. Charlotte is so scared at the beginning. She's sick and sad, and everyone tells her she'll never get better. But then something changes. She goes on a journey, and even though it's really hard, she becomes brave. And at the end, when she can't have everything she wants, she says this line that Grandma told me was the secret to surviving anything. Emma's eyes locked onto Betty's and she recited the words with perfect clarity. Don't let's ask for the moon. We have the stars. I didn't understand it at first, Emma continued. But Grandma explained it to me. She said that sometimes we can't have everything we want. Sometimes cancer tries to take the moon from us. It tries to take our hair, our strength, our normal life. But the secret is that even when cancer takes the moon, it can't take the stars. And the stars are still beautiful. The stars are still light. The stars are still hope. Bette Davis, this woman who had portrayed strength on screen for 60 years, was openly weeping. Oh, Emma, she whispered. You understood Charlotte better than anyone ever has. I watched your movie 47 times, Miss Davis, Emma said with pride. 47 times. And every single time I had to get chemotherapy. Every single time I felt like I couldn't go on. I would close my eyes and imagine all the stars inside me, fighting the bad cells. I would say Charlotte's words over and over. We have the stars. We have the stars. We have the stars. She looked up at Bette with absolute conviction. You taught me that losing some things doesn't mean losing everything. You taught me that being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you keep going even when you are scared. That's the secret you gave me, Miss Davis. That's how you saved my life. The studio erupted in applause, but Bette stood up and pulled Emma into her arms, holding her tight. No, darling, Bette said, her voice breaking. You saved yourself. You took those words and made them more powerful than I ever could have imagined. You're not just brave, Emma. You're a star. A real star. Emma looked up at her with wide eyes. You really think I'm a star? And what Bette said next would seal this moment in television history forever. I don't think you're a star, Emma, Bette said firmly, her hands on the little girl's shoulders. I know you're a star. You're the kind of star that doesn't need a movie screen or bright lights. You shine brightest in the darkness, and that's the most powerful kind of star there is. Emma beamed with a joy so pure it was almost painful to witness. She looked back at her grandmother, who was crying so hard she could barely breathe. Grandma, did you hear? Miss Davis says, I'm a star. Dorothy stepped forward and Bette embraced her warmly. Thank you, Dorothy whispered. Thank you for giving us the words that kept her fighting. Your movies became our medicine when medicine alone wasn't enough. Emma tugged on Betty's sleeve. Miss Davis, can I ask you something? Anything, sweetheart. Anything at all. Can you teach me to say the line the way you said it in the movie? I want to say it to my cancer one more time. To tell it that even though it tried to take my moon, I still have all my stars. The request was so simple, so profound that it left the entire studio speechless. Emma, Bette said, kneeling down to eye level. That's the most beautiful idea I've ever heard. Let's say it together. They stood side by side, an 8-year-old cancer patient and a 78-year-old Hollywood legend. And together, they spoke the words that had saved Emma's life. Don't let's ask for the moon. We have the stars. The studio exploded with applause. But Emma had one more surprise. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small handmade card decorated with crayons and glitter stars. I made this for you, Emma said shyly. It's my thank you. And what was written inside that card would become Bette Davis's most treasured possession. Keep watching and subscribe because the most beautiful part of the story is about to unfold and you won't believe what happens next. Bette opened the card and read aloud through tears. Dear Miss Bette Davis, thank you for teaching me to find my stars. You are my hero forever. Love, Emma the star. Bette held the card to her chest and looked directly into the camera. This is the greatest review of my entire career. Nothing else even comes close. Johnny announced that Bette had arranged a private screening of Now Voyager at Warner Brothers for Emma and other young cancer patients, turning one girl's hope into a legacy that would help countless others. 6 months later, Emma's leukemia went into full remission when she rang the bell at Children's Hospital celebrating the end of treatment. She wore Betty's star-shaped brooch gifted to her that night on The Tonight Show. In Emma's bedroom today hangs a framed photo of that moment. An 8-year-old girl and a Hollywood legend, both crying, both laughing, both teaching each other what courage really means. Sometimes we can't have the moon, but we always have the stars. And sometimes that's exactly enough to save a life.